The audiences are the heart of everything we do. We aim to develop things with quality, with creativity, and we really respect and celebrate the diversity of both BBC employees, but the whole nation-wide population. It was founded in the 1922. Our purpose is to inform, educate, and entertain in this order. And I think the following phrase defines really well the company. Our organization exists in order to serve individuals and society as a whole, rather than a small set of stakeholders. So the BBC is really independent from the government, from the private sector. We don't rely on advertisement to build our content, and this does allow us to create and follow content and follow the principles I described. Some numbers. So the BBC reaches 91% of the UK population, adult population. We reach on a weekly basis 426 million people, and we publish around 2,000 pieces of content every day. But we, as any website, TV, radio, we have very limited slots to occupy those. So it was always a challenge on which content should we surface, which content is adequate for the consumers of our products. I work in a team called Data Lab, and this is one, this phrase describes a bit what we do. We try to gather the data from the BBC in a scalable way, so we can use machine learning to support content enrichment and personalizing the experience of the audiences. Our vision is for the BBC to be a leader in machine learning that delights audiences and prioritizes the needs of individuals and society over corporations and states. So we know that we are not yet a leader in machine learning, but that's our goal. That's what we're all heading towards. This is a pre-lockdown image of some of the team members of Data Lab who were part of the team in August 2019. Since there was coronavirus and the pandemic, these are our remote working setup where we have team members allocated in their own homes working. This is a picture from March this year. Our team tries to be as diverse as possible. We have contributors who are specialists in architecture, data science, editorial, engineering, and product and project managers, all of which allow us to build meaningful products together. So a bit about the machine learning in our team. We try, well, not only in our team, in the BBC. So the BBC uses machine learning to both surface content. So we try to analyze the interests of individuals and provide personalized recommendations for them. But not only, machine learning has even been used at the company to create and curate content for us. So this article, I will be sharing these slides later on my Twitter account at Tatiana _AlChueyr. And there is this article which describes how the BBC used machine learning to filter out 27,000 of programs and selected the 150 more meaningful programs to be displayed in BBC 4 channel during the evening, during 2 evenings. So machine learning has proved as a tool useful from all perspectives of the business. An overview of how the machine learning procedure usually works. We have some historical data, we train models, we generate some model artifacts, and then we will use that to predict, based on available data, what might be either useful for the users or what might be useful for our editors or anyone who might be using that tool. A bit of the current work my team has been doing at the BBC. So this is more specific to Data Lab. So we delivered a new recommendation engine for the word services in Arabic and Hindi. Russian is also just waiting some new exchanges. We developed recommendation engines for the BBC News and BBC Sport. We're very close to shipping recommendations for sounds, for voice is in progress, and for iPlayer. So how do our recommendations engines work? We have two, there in the industry, there are two main patterns. One of them is content-based, where we try to see what the user might be interested based on the types of documents the user saw, read in the past. We call that content-based recommendations because we only use the user history to make those type of recommendations. And we also have collaborative filtering approaches where we gather the patterns of multiple users and we aggregate those in order to give personalized experience for the individual users. This methodology is called collaborative filtering. And at the moment, for instance, for sounds, we have a recommendation engine which joins these two mechanisms together. So our day-to-day, we usually have an idea where machine learning might be applicable in the business. We process the data accordingly. We try to understand business rules. I will talk a bit more about this in a system we developed in the past. We then developed the engine and we try to evaluate it during the development so we can know if we're heading to the right direction or not. That's a constant procedure with a few iterations. And then we try to launch it to production as soon as possible so we can have A/B tests and multivariate tests where we will be able to see if those recommendation engines are actually improving the audience experience or not. So we have some tools to perform qualitative tests with a small number of users where they're able to compare multiple versions of engines and things. And that allows us to decide where we should head. So we try to make the decisions based on numbers. And we also have A/B tests or MVT tests where we might have one or multiple variants and we give them to the audiences and we wait until we have some values which show that there is a clear winner or not based on a long period of usage of those platforms. So we need to find something which is statistically significant. Now, this is a use case of a platform we developed in the past, and it illustrates a bit how we work on a day-to-day basis with the editorial team, so we can make sure we're respecting some ethical principles from the BBC, and we follow good patterns. So this product was called BBC Plus, and the aim of it was to be a very quick app to surface short videos. So at the moment in the industry, there are lots of similar products where you have several short videos, probably most of them less than 5 minutes. Most of these videos weren't surfaced to the audience until we had this platform. And the idea was to be a very quick application which would allow us to iterate really, really fast. So here, let's see. So, and I will explain a bit about how we moved from the start of the development, how the algorithm evolved from the moment we had the recommendations developed locally to actually something which could be put to the audiences to use, an MVP, minimum viable product. So the first thing to keep in mind is that the BBC is really, really careful about what content we can surface. And we even have this editorial guidelines, which are a very beautiful book, which is more or less this thick. And it has lots of rules and principles of how we should make sure we are not biased towards an opinion, how we should give the audience the full spectrum. So, and these guidelines are public. So if you want to read more, this is the link. I will be sharing these slides later on. So an example of one of the principles that we need to keep in mind while developing. So let's say there is some trial going on about a particular person who is accused of having sexually abused other people. So a common case, unfortunately. And let's say the trial is going to happen on Friday. So the BBC cannot influence the jury's decision in those cases. So we need to be very careful with that type of content to make sure we do not surface near the trial, so we don't influence the decision, the outcome. The name of this is contempt of court risk, and one of the ways we tried to avoid this content to be exposed was that we created a label. We enriched how the program metadata is set by creating a label contempt of court risk. And we would decide if a specific video was likely to have a court risk based on keywords such as arrest, assault, allegation. And based on this, we would filter out this type of programs to avoid the risk of influencing a judgment. Another case, another type of rule which we had to add to the product so it could be compliant with the BBC and with the ethics of the company is related to elections. So during elections, we cannot surface political content which could affect the vote. So again, we created a label called political risk, and we tried to identify which content might have um, a political content, so we avoid those during some periods of time. Then, even though the BBC does its best to write content always into high standards, there are times when people don't expect the content to be surfaced because they think it will be just tomorrow or something. And sometimes the content has very poor metadata. So in this screenshot, for instance, you can see it's written Series 25, Preview Episodes 26-38. That's an awful title, which we would not like to expose in the app like this. So we identified in the content dynamically which content might not have adequate titles, and based on that, we also filtered them out from exposing to the app. Some other concerns. So at the UK and the BBC tries to respect the 9 p.m. watershed, which means the content that is published before 9 in the evening should be children safe. So we need to avoid sex, violence, and strong language. So those are some of the things we need to think whenever we're building a product. Who is the target audience? Are we able to make sure those contents won't be exposed in an inadequate time to an inadequate user of our platforms? Then we also respect the GDPR, and we make sure we do have some human curation alongside automation. So let's say we have a user who has never used the app, we would have curated lists to help giving a first experience to those users. Regarding the GDPR, so we did our best in this app to make the recommendations be explainable. So we try to say, look, you're seeing this news because you previously watched arts content, for instance, and we gave UI tools to help the user getting more information about those topics if they wanted to at that point in time. Whenever companies are developing machine learning, we always want to guide our decisions based on numbers and metrics. And the way many achieve that is just checking, are users clicking a lot on this link? Are users watching videos for a long time? Are people actually reading until the end of the news? But at the BBC, we have some interesting challenges where we need also to have metrics for the curation values. So how much affection will the content bring to that target user? How authentic it is? How compelling? Is it fresh enough? How relatable is it? Is it entertaining? Is it warm? Is it reassuring? So these are many of the curation values that sometimes we're able to measure, sometimes we're not, but they're there in our day-to-day. And the idea is that we can use machine learning to try to achieve those, bringing the best of the two worlds with the editorial experience and also with the algorithms. So these are some of the metrics that we used. So for offline evaluation, when we have a model before we actually launch it, we're able to use some metrics such as MDCG, hit rate, diversity, recency, surprisal, how different that content is from different contents. And then we're also able to collect feedback from a subset of users who give input of how they find the experience and the content that was selected for them. So this timeline shows a bit of the iterations we had and how we managed to get the editorial team on board while using machine learning to give personalized news for users in the context of the BBC Plus application. So many people might think, okay, I have an engine, that's good, let's launch. So that was our initial step, but no. We then had lots of cases, the contempt of court, elections, under 16, quality criteria. It's a path. It's a path. It's a journey, and the iterations make it even more meaningful. Some takeaways from this experiment: editorial partnership is key to how we work. We have an editorial team member embedded in the development team who, before lockdown, would have lunch with us every day. The company's principles are at the heart of our decisions. And there is a path between having a product which is scalable and technically good enough to be launched to something which is BBC compliant in production ready. So as I explained, we are really guided by some principles when we develop machine learning. So as a public service role, we are the nation broadcaster in the UK. We serve data to the global audience. Millions of people consume what we do. So we need to make sure that the information we're giving is informed and can be debatable. We need to allow people to question the information we're giving them. Also, as a public service institution, we try to bring partners together to make sure we have values which are shared across institution, academia, and the commercial sector. And finally, we always check if what we are developing is compatible with several principles, and if we are really achieving impartiality to the best we can, independence, accountability, and if the content is really universal. So some of our commitments: the audiences are the heart of what we do. Our algorithms shouldn't be biased towards a specific age or gender or whatever. We really should be able to serve the audience equally and fairly. We are compatible with the BBC's editorial guidelines, and we aim to broaden the audience's horizons. So it's quite common in lots of recommendation platforms where the company is trying to sell content to keep the users in a bubble, which is what the user probably immediately wants. But then the user becomes really specialized in something and they have a narrow view. That's not the goal of the BBC. We want to grow and we want to allow people to think, to grow. And also, the algorithms form only part of our content discovery process, and we value the editorial human curation, and we are each time finding best ways of getting their ideas and all that computers can't achieve yet to be able to create a good experience, bringing these things together. We created, together with partners, machine learning principles checklist, which is a very practical way of going through a checklist and trying to see how well we're meeting these values. It's a self-audit tool, which anyone would be able to use, and there will be a link there. And then this part of the presentation is not directly related to machine learning ethics, but I think it shows a bit how much the BBC cares about the audience. So there was this research, which there is also a public report for it online. It gathered the opinion of 11,000 people from 7 different markets. And it tried to understand what people want from their lives and what they think technology can enable, how technology can help them achieve those. And I think since our aim is the audience, this type of survey is so meaningful and it really helps us revisiting how we do things. So some examples of the outcomes of this survey. So people in the UK don't usually think technology is being developed with their best interests at heart. Could we improve this by giving more transparency? How satisfied are you with your life? So how anxious did you feel yesterday? So it's quite interesting to see how the age groups, it seems the older people get, more anxious they are. And is there something we could do to help people becoming less anxious? And what are the values based on those age groups? Could machine learning helping us addressing those for those people? And then there are several areas of technology we could use, how we could best support human beings, how we could be more clear, how we can help people going from distraction to focus. So this type of research helps us to really see the consumer as it should, and it helps us focus on empowering the consumer, empowering the audience. So we try to have transparent mechanisms where the user is allowed to switch on and off personalization at any time. And we try, whenever possible, to have explainers of why we're recommending content. And these 2 articles are quite good to watch the recommendations we're giving you and how are they created. Why are you receiving those things? So we really aim to be transparent towards the audience. If anyone is interested on knowing more about our team, this is the website. There is some further reading on knowing more about ethical machine learning. So stay home, stay connected, save lives. And now let's go to the questions, I think. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for the organizers and for everybody.